We're grateful you stayed, and it's time for us to serve you what the newspapers are saying this morning. Quite a lot on the budget, quite a lot on the Black Stars loss yesterday, but good thing is we gave a good account of ourselves. The first goals scored by an African nation at Qatar 2022. We'll be delving into that, but let me welcome aboard Ben Efson, editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Mr. Efson, a very good morning to you. All right, we'll try to get the connection to Mr. Efson and we'll take it from there. But I'd love to hear from you via the live stream. What are your thoughts concerning yesterday's match? I have my own thoughts, my take. I've already shared it on myjoyonline.com. You can take it there, you can check it out. I shared my thoughts on Baba Rahman, whom I believe single-handedly cost us 2 goals. We could have gave the Portuguese side a much tougher time. And yesterday was heartbreak for me watching it because I could spot so many loopholes. Yes, they say sometimes watching from afar, you see so many things, but there were so many glaring mistakes. But I'll not give out everything. You want to read that article on myjoyonline.com. But let's get into the papers. As and when we're joined by Ben Efson, we'll take it from there. 2023 economic policy, ambitious revenue drive underway. E-levy reduced to 1%, VAT increased to 15%, that's by 2.5 percentage points. Funding for 30,000 youth-led businesses, spending cuts, feeding grants go up. Those are some of the major stories when it comes to the budget presentation. I'll read the story so we pick details of that. There's also government picks graphic to produce a paper, and then central tone, like was announced yesterday, lack of roads undermines development. And you can also read the finance minister's full responses to censure motion raised by the minority in parliament in tomorrow's special edition of the Daily Graphic. I'm doing a bit of an advert for them. Yeah, of course, it's just in a good spirit. But let's look at this story. So the government plans to aggressively mobilize domestic revenue, boost local production and cut spending in order to increase revenue and reduce the country's dependence on borrowing. It will also provide funding for 30,000 youth-led businesses and raise spending to protect the poor and the vulnerable as part of efforts to mitigate the impact of rising prices on individuals and firms. The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, who announced the stream of measures when he presented the 2023 budget and economic policy of the government to Parliament yesterday, said the budget also sought to stabilize the economy and transition it into an upper middle income status. He said the government acknowledged that the citizenry had been severely impacted by the current economic challenges and had therefore lined up appropriate policies and programs to help address the challenges. On revenue, the finance minister sought Parliament's approval to increase the value-added tax by 2.5% from 12.5% as part of measures to increase local resources and help reset the economy onto the path of growth. He also said the 2.5 percentage increase in the consumption tax handle was expected to rake in more than 2 billion Ghana cedis next year. He said accrued funds would be channeled into supporting the road sector and the government's digitalization agenda. On social interventions, apart from the revenue measures, the budget would double allocations to the livelihood empowerment against poverty payment per beneficiary household from the current 45 cedis per month to 90 cedis. The government would also increase the number of beneficiary households of LEAP from the current 344,185 households. Quoting him, he says, these measures will increase the current budget on LEAP from 19.7 million Ghana cedis in 2022 to 395 million Ghana cedis. Increase the budget on school feeding caterer payment by an additional 138 million in 2023, Mr. Ofori-Atta said. Of course, the point has also been made that they are going to have to increase that about 1 cedi. At a point, it was less than a cedi per student or per pupil. And a lot of complaints came through. I mean, it was practically impossible to cook anything with that sum of money. According to the finance minister, there's going to be an increment there. Also, in terms of revamping production, he said the COVID-19 pandemic had raised the need to reset the economy through industrialization. But you see, with all this talk, I was listening to, was it the BBC? Yes, yesterday. And there was a report, and it was very interesting listening to market women, traders, ordinary people speaking, because this person who was reporting for the BBC was talking about what we all know. A corkscrew If anybody watched or listened to it, they can share with me. A corkscrew made in China. Toothpicks made in China. Practically everything the person picked had been made in China. And so it's no wonder that we are where we are. We're cutting, forex to some of those importing some of these items. But is that going to solve the problem? Only time will tell. I sometimes feel very aggrieved owing to my age and what could have been done for me ahead of time. From the Nkrumah era, we curtailed that on the 24th of February 1966 and said we wanted better. But is this the better? 5+ decades on. And especially when we spoke about moving from taxation to production. Is this the production? And you ask yourself again, recently we heard from Nana Komia, stalwart of the NPP, talking about factories here and there. Problem is, these are not checking out. And that is why we find ourselves at a standstill. We're not making progress because what? Is it sugar? Have we cut down on our sugar imports? Is it fruit juice? We import from everywhere across the world, even South Africa and Nigeria. Nigeria is not importing any of these. They're producing their own in town. Is it poultry? What is it? We import everything. How can we attain that status then? So it makes for interesting, reading when some of these things are said. But we can only keep hoping that the right things would be done. You can also share your thoughts with us on the e-levy, which has been reduced to 1%, but of course, that threshold has been taken off. So even if you send 10 pesos, you'll be hit. There's also VAT that has been increased to 15%, among others. We're joined by Ben Efson, editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Mr. Efson, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben, and good morning to our viewers.
Great. What are your key takeaways from Budget 2023? Let's go straight for the jugular.
Oh, I think that straight away it's about no hampers, no production of these things because
no diaries.
Nothing.
Well, technically not nothing, but at least those were mentioned that they were being taken out.
Ben, there is so much money that goes into these things.
Right.
Another one of my joys is, and I hope that the government will give reward for many of the citizen journalists who will be able to film and put on TikTok or put it out when they see these four-wheel drives being misused in town.
Right.
So all the government vehicles, I believe, should have GV number plates immediately.
I think that was made mention of, that they will be green, they'll have government, number plates moving forward. And when he spoke about the V8s and the V6s.
Yes, because if you look that how many cars can you sit in at a time? You've got people who got 3 or 4 V8, not bought with their own money.
Right.
But with state money. And people might not see the difference, but it is a lot of money. It is a lot. I mean, when I heard him and when I read it, I was like, yes, it is true that necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that hardship brings common sense back to economic supervisors.
Right.
Yes, I think so. Because, for example, this e-levy, for example, when it was being considered, there were a few suggestions that let's go it a little so that we can capture more. And they failed to block an important loophole. I mean, the e-levy arguments were so divisive that they left a loophole where people will go and deal with the Momo operators and bypass the payment. So let's hope that the 1% and there's no, if you are sending 20 cities now, the 1% will get you. I mean, I think that was a good thing. I think that is the implementation. And there must be some small work for citizen journalists. So people who are unemployed can be able to have their phones ready to take shots and put it out there.
And that's an interesting perspective you have in terms of the journalists or citizen journalists, as you call them. But quickly, what is your take when it comes to that debt restructuring, debt exchange, whatever name we want to call it? We had an interaction with Dr. John Kuma post the presentation of the budget, and basically there is going to be a haircut. What form it will take? So there is an imposition of a 30% haircut on foreign bonds. Now, this arrangement, what it means is that those who subscribe to these bonds will receive no interest for 2023. In 2024, they'll get 5%. In 2025, they'll get 10%. And then it's only in 2026 that this will be restored. It means for 4 years, there's going to be a haircut on these bonds. How do you react to that? Because a lot of people who pension off also subscribe to these. It is these coupons that they use to get their money at the end of a month or at the end of a quarter. This is going to impact them directly. So what does this mean for you, Benefson?
If I was somebody who was going to suffer such a haircut, I would sue the government. Because the arrangement of which I decided to go and put my money in there, there was no ifs or buts, or there were no possibilities. So I'll be surprised if one or two people decide to sue the government. And it will be interesting to see how the case will end. Because when the president said there will be no haircut, maybe he hadn't been advised by his finance minister, or the finance minister did not read through his script. Because I think that when you do that, you are injecting what I call lack of confidence and trust. So yes, I hope that somebody goes to court to see how it will be done. But the haircuts that have been put in, if the government will be able to even be fair then on certain, let me quote, pardon my language, silly imports. How do you import toothpicks? Some of these little things, and like I'm saying, for these things, they must be able to put it down. When it comes out, somebody should spend a huge amount of their time in prison. Because, when these things happen, you are in a democratic era. You are not in a military government, unconstitutional era that people cannot challenge or government will do certain things. The budget obviously has good intentions, but not at the expense of people who have trusted the system and have put them in. And I hope somebody goes to court on that.
Right. Let's check out some other stories in the paper. 4 African presidents in Qatar for 2022 World Cup. And the world has gathered for the world's biggest festival in Qatar, the FIFA World Cup 2022, which is witnessing 32 teams from across the world battling it out for the heavyweight undisputed title as a World Cup winner. According to reports, over 20 heads of state were present at the opening event last Sunday, that is November the 20th, at Al Bayt Stadium, where the opening match between host Qatar and Ecuador took place. Ghana's President Akakpo is the latest president to have arrived in Qatar, African president, ahead of the Black Stars' opening game with Portugal. According to reports, Presidents Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Macky Sall of Senegal were officially invited by the Qatari government to take part in the event as well. We also know that President George Weah of Liberia is also there to watch his son, and there has been some questioning of whether he's there on state funds. That is there. There's also this story that I want to bring to the fore on gender ending violence against women. 16 days activism begins. And it's a piece put together by FIDA Ghana's Noel Apia. I always like to highlight gender issues. You can check out details of that on page 13. But a pointed bit, as we commemorate this year's 16 days of activism to end violence against women from November 25 to December 10, what part are you playing as an individual or a group in the activism to end this canker? That's a question posed there that we can all take a look at. A central tone, lack of roads undermine development. That's Constituency Watch in the middle spread of the paper. But on the back page, gallant Black Stars lose to Portugal. Did you watch the match yesterday?
I did.
How did it, leave you feeling? For me, I was gutted, but I'll save my thoughts and let you share yours for now.
I was surprised that the referee did not go to the VAR.
Right.
From different angles. Rather, Ronaldo should have been given a yellow card for stimulation.
Right.
Clearly.
Because our player got his foot on the ball.
Yes. You see, when there was that contact, he started going down even before Salisu got close to him. So it was obvious that the referees and the VAR were awed by Ronaldo. But if you watch the different angles that the cameras put out, Ronaldo, when he had his leg when his leg touched the ball, he started going there before Salisu got there.
Right.
And the referees, I think, that were a bit dumb. If you want to help Ronaldo get a record of scoring in 5 consecutive World Cups, try and put up a show.
Right. So interesting point you make there, because Otoado says if someone scores a goal, congratulations. But this was really a gift, a special gift from the referee. And many people have contested that goal and why the referee did not use VAR. But what's the problem? Do you feel that Africans are always cheated? We are always getting the short end of the stick, and we have to rise and do something about that?
I suspect that if it wasn't Ronaldo and any other Portugal player, the referee would have gone for VAR. The referee would have gone for VAR. Because Ronaldo himself, when he got up, he had a look of guilt. And I'm saying that they were not being intelligent. If you wanted to help you make the record, go to VAR, maybe invite the referee who have the final say.
Right.
But it was clear that they were being unfair to us. It was clear. But if there be any other Portuguese player, and I think that one thing that I think the coaches must tell our players, the gentleman who scored Ghana's second goal,
Bukari Osman, I think.
Yeah, Bukari.
Right.
His second goal had left us with 1 goal.
Yes.
And mentally, instead of picking the ball and taking it back to the center circle, he had gone to the corner flag to try and get fans from the crowd. Sheer ignorance. Because minutes count. But I think that I was proud of the team. For all the World Cup that we've gone,
right?
We sent the youngest ever team,
right?
And I hope that if we keep them together, I mean, Portugal has a lot of good players. They played very well, and I think that, and I'm happy that Uruguay and South Korea played a draw.
Right.
It gives us a chance.
It opens up the group and gives us a chance. But we succumbed to 2 quick-fire goals, and both of them in there. You cannot miss the fact that Baba Rahman, who has been having quite a long loan spell, though attached to Chelsea, people are complaining about the squad selection. Otoado had said before this that when for example, Joseph Pinto was not, on the Black Stars team, that he's not the only one who does the selection. We've been told time without number about the biases and the things that come to play. But are those beginning to bite us? Because someone like Baba Rahman, and I'm not being, I'm not going after an individual, but 2 of our goals had to do with him. And you ask yourself, was it up to the coach to take him off at a point What was Daniel Odoi doing? I mean, there are so many, issues we can raise. Yes, we are rooting for the Black Stars, but what is not going well is not going well. Quick take on that, and we move on to other papers.
I think that I was quite surprised when I saw even the invitation for Baba Rahman. This is somebody who is in his 7th and last year at Chelsea. And he's gone on 7 loans. That means every year they send him out. If he was that good, people would have bought him off Chelsea's books, or Chelsea would have sold him and gotten some money. The simple fact is that Chelsea don't consider him good, and they don't have any takers for him. So, you see, a coach, if you decide on something, have you ever heard of a player being permanently sacked from appearing in the Black Stars before? No. So he'll pay the price for it. So, I mean, if they decide to dispense with services, fine. Clearly, I'm not a coach, then you are not a coach, but we all see that nobody sells the jewel in the crown. If Baba Rahman has been good at Chelsea, your 7th year, and you are out on your 7th loan, and you've gone to Reading twice, a first division team in England, why don't they take your money and buy you? Because obvious that, I mean, he was the league. Not that, I mean, the person would have played better, but from his record, the coach should have seen. We've got other good defenders there. I mean, I was expecting they would start with the English Lamptey. I thought they were going to start with him. But it's a coach decision, and he will pay the consequences.
Right. Let's get into other papers. And 2023 budget economic policy, government plans massive expenditure cuts, projects to spend 205,431 million Ghana cedis to finance budget, and that's in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Some highlights in there. 2023 macroeconomic targets: overall real GDP growth of 2.8%, non-oil real GDP growth of 3.0%, and December inflationary rate of 18.9%. And some people are doubtful about that. Primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 0.7% of GDP. Then gross international reserves to cover not less than 3.3 months of import cover. There are other medium-term macroeconomic targets. Overall real GDP to grow at an average of 4.3%. Non-oil GDP to grow at an average of 4%. Inflation to be within the target band of 8.2%. That's another bit that people find to be unrealistic. The primary balance on commitment basis to average 1.3% of GDP in the 2023 to 2026 period, and gross international reserves to cover at least 4 months of imports. So that is that. There's also, I'm testifying to have justice served, prosecution witness. That story on page 3. Lotto agent before court for 143,154 Ghana cedi theft. Then, in other stories, so this still keeps up. And then Ghana start World Cup on sloppy note. That's how the Ghanaian Times newspaper captures it. And that's it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. But let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper. Government freezes public civil service hiring bans, and also bans V8 and V6. That story is on page 3. So maybe just some highlights. And Ken Oforiatta announced a reduction of the headline rate. Let me get the bit about. So I just wanted to. So the minister disclosed the total revenue and grants are projected at 143,956 million Ghana cedis. But there's this point about the civil service that I just wanted to get to. Maybe I'll find it and get back to it later. But basically, the summary of it: a freeze on public and civil service hiring in some sectors. And of course, we've already spoken about the V8 and V6 situation. Let's work together to revive the economy. That's on page 6. No hampers, calendars, diaries for this year. And Aisha Huang's son caged over 250 bullets. Now, this call to help revive the economy, what do you think ordinary Ghanaians can do in this situation? It has been likened, I heard Dr. Kasilato Forson, ranking member of the Finance Committee, say this is akin to what we experienced in Ghana in 1983. That just tells you how troubling the situation is. We're talking about Rawlings chain back then. If we're back in that situation, then you know what it means. What do you make of that situation? What can the ordinary Ghanaian do in these times to help shore up our own economy? What do you think?
Well, I think that basically we need to be a bit innovative. If you look on our front page, for example, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. The Bamias announced that the government was going for gold for oil barter deal. That will save us quite a chunk of forex. People will get gold, and by the first quarter of 2023, this will take off. Then we are in a worse shape than other countries. If you look at, for example, Nigeria, and going back to the Rawlings chain, that is 83, many of our viewers were young then at that time. In Nigeria now, you go and queue with your vehicles for 2 days before you get fuel.
Right.
If I think diesel has gone down from 120 cedis a gallon to 100 now. If the government does not allow it to come, we are going to have a situation where black marketeers will go and smuggle fuel, and they'll come and sell it for 200 cedis a gallon. And on the funny side of it, when people go to parties of the rich in Nigeria, they are not giving souvenirs of either watch or phone. They are giving 2 gallons of fuel as souvenir. That shows you how extreme it is. And when the measures to cut down on things, for example, the civil servant brought a very innovative idea that if they are not going to get 60% increase,
Right.
then they must work on maybe 2 or 3 days. And I think that the government can have a look at it, that if the 60% the civil servants want for next year is not possible, one, I think there's overemployment in civil service already. They can have a system, and I'm sure if you go to many of the positions, there's more than one person there. This month, you will come 3 times a week.
Right.
Next month, you will come 2 times. And I think that it will be better, they will save on transportation. So let's give it a try. Let's think outside the box. That if they want a 60% increase in transport fares, let them go on shift. You work 3 days a week for this month. Your colleague works 2 days. The next month you will take. And let's see how we keep the bend a year from now.
Let's look at a few papers as we wrap the conversation. Republic Press, government freezes jobs. And Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has announced a freeze on employment for civil servants effective January 2023. That was what I was alluding to. And then VAR out of sight as bad refereeing helps Portugal. That's in Republic Press. There's also The Finder, economic enclave, rice, tomato, maize, poultry, etc. to be produced on 110,000 acres of land. Again, for me, Benefson, I'm going to be blunt. When I hear of these things, I want to see them running and contributing to cutting down our imports before I give it any credence. I've heard these too many times, too many stories told without any proper ending. There's also all 2.5 million extremely poor people to benefit from LEAP school feeding grant to be increased as well. Let me, just before we wrap the conversation on economics, at least, also add Finance Minister expresses gratitude to MPs. That is in the Ghanaian Publisher newspaper. Quick reactions, if any, to that, and then we'll go on to the last 2 or 3 papers.
I think that James alluding that, quote, I hope the president keeps his promises. They're the MPP are going to bucket the budget, and from what I think that The president said they should allow Ken to present it. They should be in, and I'm sure once the IMF negotiations are concluded, maybe the president may accept Ken's resignation based on ill health. I mean, the way things are going now, yes, the MPs have shown respect to the president, the party, on which they can come to parliament, but they should also bear in mind that they have constituents, and I'm hoping that maybe things will be done in a better way. Clearly, when things are good, there's no need for anybody to be sacrificed.
Right.
But when there's a problem, somebody has to be sacrificed. That's how it is.
Well, when you look at the new Weekend Crusading Guide, the stories there are stories that we saw yesterday or have seen today. So I'll just skip that. But there's this interesting one, Teacher Education Journal. It's said to be Ghana's first teacher education journal. And this is my first time seeing it, but it says, communique on national dialogue presented to Minister for Education. There's also, I am committed to expanding UCC infrastructure. President Akufo-Addo says so. There is also increased feeding fee of student teachers. Prinkoff president to Ghana or to government. And then Fati Isifu, Ghana Teacher Prize, a free and fair award scheme. And free and fair is in quotation marks. Final comments, Benefson, as we wrap the conversation.
Well, I think that I'll appeal to all Ghanaians that one, we should mind our utterances. And in about 2 years, we will have the opportunity to go to the polls if we think the government in power is not doing well. We vote them out. When you have, my analysis of 2020 is that a third of Ghanaian voters are swing. And when that happens, it tells you that if the government is not doing well, but threatening the government, we will do that, channel those energies into campaigning against the government. 2 years is a long time, so we should avoid situations when there will be a clash with the police and so on. Things are tight, but the voter has his choice.
Right.
So 2 years is not too far away.
Benefson, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Thank you for the courtesies, and we wish you the best of the day, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed weekend, all to our viewers.
Thank you. Benefson is editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. But I'm sure you want to know, if you missed the match, what happened, what transpired yesterday. Some sloppiness. The midfield did not hold. Baba Rahman did his thing, and we lost by 3-2. But a good account of ourselves we gave, and scoring the first goals by an African nation at Qatar 2022. More on that and other stories in sports up next. Do stay.